Okay, everybody, welcome back to Jon Talks. I am Jon Cox.
Jessica Cox.
And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the 4 Disciplines of Execution, which is the book we started talking about last week. And specifically, we are going to talk about the second component of the 4DX system, which is lead measures.
Yes.
So lead measures, one of the ways that they describe that, I'm a fitness junkie, so I'm going to use the fitness metaphor, but if you wanted to lose weight or gain a certain amount of muscle or something like that, you might think that you would start by stepping on the scale and just kind of like maybe reducing what you eat or trying one thing or two in a diet or something, and really focusing on the numbers on that scale. And most people, having coached other people through fitness, they get fixated on the numbers on the scale. Well, the numbers on the scale aren't actually that great at predicting success because it's something that happens after activities that you've already participated in. So that would be an example of a lag measure because it's measuring the effect of an activity after the fact. There's a lag to the measurement. A lead measure is something that is predictive of reaching a goal. So if the goal is to lose weight or trim down or gain muscle or whatever, what are some of the activities that would lead to that? Well, monitoring what you eat, so tracking what you eat on a daily basis might be one of those. It gives you an idea of how much you're consuming and whether or not you need to increase or decrease calories, etc. You might exercise for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's something that's known to increase circulation and boost metabolism and contribute to overall health and burn calories and all that good stuff. So if you do those things on a somewhat regular basis, and then you write down that you've done those things, they will, in theory, be predictive of losing weight and getting in shape and adding muscle and so on and so forth. So at Aqua Vita, we've implemented that in a number of ways. So each team member in our Monday meeting, our Monday huddle as we call it, has to present what they are going to do individually that week in order to contribute to the wildly important goal that we set in our big team summit.
And actually, that was something that our project manager wanted to weigh in on because she was talking about lead measures can be difficult to identify because we're so used to lag measures. And those tend to be easier to measure, like you were saying with the weight. It's easier just to look at the scale and say, oh, okay, that's what happened. But when you accurately identify lead measures, it can be so astoundingly helpful, she says, in getting you towards the goals because you know exactly where to put your focus on. When we first implemented 4DX, one of my lead measures was to check scope on our clients twice a week because I knew scope creep was a problem. This is an understatement. She championed for this like crazy, which was so worthwhile because we needed to do that.
Michelle is a big champion for loss prevention at Aqua Vita.
So at the first, I didn't know how much of a problem it was. Once I started looking at it, it was really illuminating and helped us start to recoup the costs and, be fair to ourselves and not, donate time we didn't know we were donating on projects. And so that's an example of a lead versus lag measure. The lag measure is when you get to the billing report and you say, uh-oh, we spent more time on this than we are going to bill the client, and that's on us, so we have to eat that cost. If we're looking at the lead measure of, in this case, scope creep, where we're counting our hours up to the billing of the project, that means that we do a better job on our end of being fair and saying, okay, this is taking a while, or the client's asking for a whole lot of stuff that we didn't think of when we started the project.
May I borrow that book for a second?
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's a really great example in the book, 4 Disciplines of Execution. I'll hold that up again, right? Okay, so the example is on page 61, and this is about engaging a team in lead measures. And I'm just going to read about a page out of this. It says, once a team is clear about its lead measures, their view of the goal changes. Let's take a look at what happened when Beth Wood, a grocery store manager, set out to achieve a very challenging goal of increasing year-over-year sales. Beth called in Bob, her bakery manager, to get his support in improving their sagging year-over-year sales numbers. Bob is a good-natured manager, and on a typical day, he would have likely said, "Sure, Beth, I'd be glad to help," even if he didn't have a clue what he could do to drive more sales. On this day, however, Bob had reached his limit and wasn't in the mood to just go along.
No.
"You want improved sales?" he said sarcastically. "Knock yourself out, Beth." Startled by Bob's response, Beth came back quickly. "Look, Bob, I can't do this alone. You're closer to the customers than I am, and you're closer to your employees than I am." Now Bob was really frustrated. "What exactly would you like for me to do? It's not like I can hit people over the head and drag them into the store. I run the bakery. If you want a bagel, I'm your guy." If you didn't know Beth and Bob well, you might think that Bob has a chronically bad attitude or doesn't respect Beth, or worse, is just lazy. But none of these things are true. Bob actually likes Beth and would also like to help the store improve sales. But two things are holding him back. One, he doesn't know how, and two, he doesn't think he can. At this moment, what's really going through Bob's mind is, we're a 30-year-old store that just had a Walmart supercenter move in down the street. No offense to Walmart. We're also on the wrong side of the intersection, and all the traffic has to make a left to get in here, if they can even see our sign. And Beth wants me to improve store sales? Bob continues, "If I knew how to improve sales, don't you think I'd already be doing it? I'm not holding out on you." When you see Bob's perspective, you can better understand his response to this frustrating question. Bob is representative of so many people. They can see the rock all too well. The problem is that they just can't see the lever to leverage it out of the way. So they started talking back and forth with each other. They began to discuss a lot of possibilities, such as raising customer service, improving store conditions, or giving away more free samples. After a lot of back and forth, they finally came to the agreement that the single biggest thing they can do to improve sales in their store is to reduce the number of out-of-stock items. This lead measure of reducing out-of-stocks is highly predictive of better store sales. This is a well-known thing in the retail world. Equally important, out-of-stocks is a highly influenceable lead measure. Now Bob sees what he can do in the bakery to drive sales. Reducing out-of-stocks is something that he and the team can really influence. They can perform extra shelf reviews to check for items that are sold out. They can organize their back room so that fast-moving products are easier to restock, or they can change the frequency and volume of reordering. In other words, it's a game he and his team can win, and now he's engaged. And it goes into greater depth on that, but what we do at Aqua Vita in that Monday meeting is we each team member can do something that the other team members cannot do as well. They excel at certain things. So for me, for example, I'm really good at going out and meeting new business people and asking them about their business and getting data on that, and then looking for opportunities to improve their business or improve their marketing or communications or whatever. And so on my list of lead measures for the week, I typically have two. And one is a customer service item. It's basically just to check in with a certain number of customers per week, look at their account, see how we're doing, see if we're getting results for them, and so on and so forth. Report those results to them so that they see what we're doing, and they see what's effective and what needs tweaking. And the other is to help push projects forward. So there are a number of skills that I have at Aqua Vita, but what I'll do is I'll go around to each team member and I'll just see if I can assist them on any of the projects that they're working on. Sometimes it just takes another set of eyes or ears to push a project to the next level. So at Aqua Vita, we have a sales goal as our wildly important goal. And those two activities that I can do highly influence that, because good customer service means repeat sales. Pushing projects forward means we hit our completion dates, we can invoice on time, which means our cash flow improves.
And also for, from the big picture perspective to a department level perspective, everyone in the organization helps choose the lead measures, and that's a piece of the process that's really important. And so I wanted to let our social media director, Cindy, weigh in And she was saying lead measures literally lead my day. Without that focus, the crazy sits in. You can't really hit those goals when you're just living in the whirlwind, and none of those is more important than the other. With it, I have more excitement about my work because I've seen a success. It feels good to know I'm winning at something. And that's a nice thing about the meetings. You can be like, hey, we hit this, we hit this, we hit this. And every person has that contribution of, I did something, even if it's restocking the shelves, it makes impact on the goal. So that's the really neat thing about the lead measure is it's influenceable, meaning something that's, do you say 70 or 80% within your control of something you can do.
Right. Yes. And, as with any system, as we rolled stuff out, we started to notice certain things that we needed to adjust in how we worked to make this system work for us. And one of them is when you're selecting your lead measure, let's say, for example, I talked about moving projects forward. Well, maybe one part of that is that I need to get information from a client. Let's say some video footage they've taken or something like that. That is something that needs to be done to complete the project, but it's not something that I have 70% or more control over if I list my lead measure as like, get this file from this person. What if they're on vacation? I can't do that. I can't do it that week. And nobody has access to the files in their office other than them. So rephrasing my lead measure to be something like, contact this client and request that they send it over, up to 3 times. By phone, if they don't answer by phone, by email, if they don't answer by email, by text, whatever. All of those things I have direct control over because I can control whether or not I send them an email or I call them or I text.
That's on you.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing. And one of the things is when you have that ownership and you have that focus as a team, one of our clients had a really good question. This is from Matt in manufacturing, about the scoreboard. And the scoreboard is where you put your lead measures, the thing that Jon was talking about, reviewing on Monday, so it's visible. Everybody has their little piece of it that they get to put a check mark on, and they have that ownership. And Matt asks, how do you keep the score from becoming too much of a focus? For example, say the goal is to raise sales by 10%. My first question actually would be, where do you come up with the 10% goal? So, and I think going ahead with that one, let's start there, because there's actually 4 different really great questions in this. So where do you come up with that 10% goal?
Yes, and that is really a function of your team getting together in a summit, the key decision makers, and really digging deep into the goal. Because you're right, an arbitrary goal of a 10% production increase would be foolhardy. There has to be a deeper reason behind why you choose that. You have to believe that it's takeable. You have to have some very educated guesses on why that's takeable. It has to be defensible to your team.
Based on data.
And so on and so forth. So maybe a 10% production increase goal is not the correct goal for you in manufacturing.
He was saying sales goal.
A sales goal. Right, exactly. For Aqua Vita, the reason that we initially started with a sales goal is because when we really got into loss prevention, which is what we were talking about earlier, we realized that just by doing a better job tracking our time, creating reports on what we do, and so on and so forth, we had easily a good 10 to 20% in just time left on the table that just wasn't being managed as well as we thought that it could be. So a 10% sales goal for us was a very realistic thing. It basically just meant we needed to tighten up how we did project management. And since customer service and quality are really important to us as well, we saw tightening up project management and loss prevention as being complementary to the goals of excellent customer service and project completion and transparency and reporting and all that good stuff. So it was decided upon based on those factors. But it doesn't have to be a sales related goal. It can be anything that you deem as being the 1 or 2 things in your universe that would make the most difference if you chose as a team to focus on it.
Yes, definitely. And again, your team may be a different size depending on how you want to do this. There's some examples where the team is the executive team. There's some examples where once the executive team decides on a goal, each individual department decides on how their goal and their lead measures are going to tie into that goal. So they may have a goal that helps feed into the organization's goal, but it's not exactly the same. Like, yeah, it's the 10% sales goal is the big organization goal, but like the bakery department, you may have an entire department get together and say, how can we do this? How can we do anything to influence this big goal? And that becomes their lead measure. So that's where the 10% would come from. And then better, piece of this that he's digging in because they really, really care about their team and they take care of their team really well.
Good.
He asks, how do you keep it from possibly becoming a competition that could hurt productivity? If you say we want to make 2,000 more widgets this month, then chances are your workforce will produce 2,000 more widgets, especially if there is a big enough carrot dangling out there or a big enough punishment for not making it. But what do you sacrifice to get the 2,000 more widgets? Workers might pay less attention to safety standards or product quality because those slow the process down.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for your attention to quality. We feel the same way about quality at Aqua Vita.
And safety.
Yeah, well, yeah, thankfully safety is not too much of an issue in our business. We might get carpal tunnel or something like that, but that's about the extent of it. Or drop a light stand on our foot or something like that. But I think in this case, I'm hearing that a dedication to quality, both of the product and of the quality of life of your team, and perhaps your customers, depending on what you're manufacturing, those seem to be the focus, which is wonderful. I love your heart in that. It shows that you really care about what you do and you're passionate about what you do.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a case like that, your wildly important goal might not be an increase in sales or production or anything like that. It might actually be some sort of a goal that's quality oriented within the company. And in 4DX, they talk about choosing one or two wildly important goals. So maybe you would have two different kinds of wildly important goals. One would be a customer related, like the quality of your product for the customer related goal. Another might be the quality of the working environment for your team or something along those lines. So not going too deeply into detail on what you do specifically, a quality goal for products might be you go to the managers of each line in the manufacturing process and you say, what are some of the activities that have the greatest impact on quality? And get their feedback on that, get their team's feedback on that, ask them to gather responses from various team members and say, like, what could we do throughout this whole department that you're working in? Little things. What are some little things that we can do to make quality just a little bit better on the product? And then how would you measure that quality is improving? That's the lag measure. And what are some of the things that you would do that would have the greatest influence on that lag measure, to increase quality as much as you possibly can? So that might be the customer quality goal or the product quality goal. And then the team quality goal might just be to go to your human resources manager and again your department managers and just say, like, how's morale with your team? How are working conditions for the team right now? Maybe even put together a little initial survey that you do to inform your decisions for the summit that you do, that all of your team measures take to your team, and they just say, how are we doing? How are we doing as a company? How are we doing as team managers? How are we doing in the widget making department or whatever your manufacturing company may be? Get their feedback and maybe come up with some little things that each department head can do to make the working conditions for the employees there just a little bit better, a little bit higher quality. And
also, kind of take a step back as you're looking at either any of the lead measures you choose, and those are all good examples of how to look at your lag and lead measures. But I hear also that you might be worried about, if we set this as the thing, will production fall? If we set product quality. How is that going to affect the other pieces of our business that require all of these have to stay at roughly what they talk about when you choose the lead measures or you choose your wildly important goal. If everything else stayed relatively the same, you don't want to say, well, these are all out the window. Nobody cares anymore about safety or product quality. We just want to hit this number. That's not the thing. Is with this program, it's assuming that the whirlwind isn't going to stop. Everything that was important before you chose that wildly important goal, and this has to be communicated to your team too, these things are still important. So it's not saying that wildly important goal is your only scoreboard or the only thing you're looking at. You need to keep your pulse or your finger on the pulse of your entire organization the way you were before you did this. It's just adding kind of a spotlight on this is the most important thing that we're going to focus on. We're going to keep the whirlwind going. We're going to make sure that we're keeping a safe, good environment for our employees. We're going to make sure that we are making sure that the end quality for the client is high. But we're really going to focus on this particular thing. And then it might change. You might move to another area as you say, okay, now we got this up. Let's move to whatever other quadrant needs work. But it's not saying you abandon that. So be careful in your messaging to the company saying, hey, we care about quality standards. We care about quality of living, work standards. But we're going to really focus on this production goal as we're keeping everything else going.
Right. So all of this is within that cycle in 40X. It's the circle that connects all 4 points called the Cadence of Accountability. So your wildly important goal, if you hit that quality goal and you really feel like you've designed systems that, at least for the foreseeable future, will continue to crank out that higher quality, maybe it's time to do another summit and shift what your wildly important goal is to another area of the company. That's what we love about 40X is it's a very flexible system. It's meant to adapt quickly. And just one more summit meeting and getting together and going, okay, guys, last time we plucked this goal out of the whirlwind of wanting to increase product quality or quality of life for our team. We've nailed it. Our team is now running on autopilot on those new systems that we've put in place. Let's look at the whirlwind again, and let's see what other 1 or 2 items we could pluck out of there that if we now focused on that and created new systems and started measuring that would then make the most difference. So it doesn't have to be an annual goal. It doesn't even have to be a quarterly goal. If you crush it in a couple of months and you feel like you've really developed a discipline around it, by gosh, do another summit and choose your next wildly important goal.
But you do, we've already talked about the goal, which is important, but you do want to stick with it for at least 6 months. So I think, or a quarter.
I think he says a quarter.
It's at least a quarter. So you have a chance to say, hey, we did a thing. And make sure it's not just a spike.
Right.
So another question we have from Rebecca with Red Door Media, who's an amazing media specialist we work with, is how do you manage lag time with clients? This is kind of a related deal. For example, a project takes a bit to see results. Oftentimes clients want to see immediate results. Managing expectations is especially what I have to implement over and over, especially with new clients. And that's an example of something that there's pieces of that are inside your control, and there's pieces of that you have to look at what's predictive and what's influenceable on that. So there's a lot of different ways you could answer that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying. That is something that I think every business professional runs into that. You're waiting on something. Hurry up and wait, I think, is an expression that I've heard a lot in construction. Some of the foremen, if a crew member was taking too long, they would say, I'm $1 waiting on a dime, that kind of stuff. But we all encounter that. It's things that are outside of our control, other people that need to get us information or do a thing in order for us to move a project forward or whatever. So what I would say is when you are creating your lead measures, don't verbalize them in a way that puts the fate of that lead measure in someone else's court. For example, with what you were saying here, and I'll recite what I was saying earlier, if the goal is to get media files from a client or something like that, rather than saying, I will get these media files from a client by Friday, you can't guarantee that because you just don't have control over that person's life and their whirlwind and all that good stuff. Their kid may get sick. They may go on vacation, whatever. But what you can have control over is the number of times that you contact them. It could be, you say, I'm going to contact them via these channels. If I can't get a hold of them, I will contact so-and-so. But I would phrase your lead measure in such a way that sets you up better for success, so that next week, when you're doing your cadence of accountability, your weekly huddle with your team, and you're all reading off your lead measures from last week and saying whether or not you did them, it can be discouraging for a team member to say, I said that I would get a media file from the client last week and I couldn't get a hold of them, so I didn't accomplish my lead measure. Well, really, they didn't get the media file, but they did at least attempt to do that. And from a psychological perspective, I think it's better for the team to phrase things using the standard of 40X, which is 70% or more within your control. I think it also sets you up for success in that you look for alternative ways to accomplish a goal that don't require putting it in someone else's court. So in what I just said, maybe you think, I'm going to email them this week and try and get the file from them. If that didn't work, well, we just can't get the file. Well, maybe they don't check email that often. So maybe you should try, you should try alternative venues every way possible. Maybe that person's gone, but there's still someone in the office who has access to those files, and they can go run and grab a hard drive for you and load it up. But if you phrase your lead measures in such a way that you have more control over it, I think not only is it better for you in that you can check things off a list and feel good about that, but maybe setting it that way strategically gets you to think around an issue rather than just running straight ahead into an obstacle like a robot. You start thinking about, okay, how could I get around this and not totally be reliant on this person to accomplish this task?
Yeah, find something that is influenceable within your realm.
Right.
And sometimes you got goals like customer service goals. There are numbers that you have to deal with as a business owner that you cannot control 100% in terms of the lag measure. And I think with this, you're looking at a customer service of, I want to improve customer service. There's examples in the book about how to improve customer service. And if that is your lag measure, that you want to become a better educator, set expectations well so that clients understand that with a media campaign, it takes time. Because we saw that with the census. The map's going to light up. And when we put more media spend into the areas that, Red Door recommended, the map started to light up. But it takes time because you have to build those impressions.
She was talking about the 2020 population census.
Yeah.
We assisted with that.
Yeah. And so, with what you're talking about, managing expectations with clients is kind of a customer service thing. So you would have to pick a lead measure that would ultimately influence that customer service satisfaction level. So it could be, let's see if we can do some kind of education or show the historical, here's how long the last campaign of this type takes, and give them a where you're at versus that historical data so that they can see we're doing pretty good, or yeah, this is typical. When you start taking a medication, you don't see the results immediately most of the time. But, make sure that they understand that. So I think your lead measure might be to, in terms of something you could do a cadence of accountability on. It could be, again, that reporting versus historical, curves so that they understand where they're at. Might be something that's 100% within your realm. You can report whatever's happening. You can show them the historical trend lines and where they're at versus other successful campaigns. That makes sense. And that might influence your lag measure of client satisfaction. So that would be an example of how you can do something, on your end that's going to help influence something that you don't have control over, which is, client satisfaction. That's on their end. But you can see which kind of reports or what kind of activities might influence that the most, and you could be tracking both of those things. Did we get the reports out? Did we get that education series to the client? And see how that affects the lag measure of client satisfaction.
Yeah, so in a previous episode, we talked about playing the long game, and what George is saying about it's hard to fertilize in the fall and then see the crop yield the next year. Yeah. And then he followed up by saying, but it's deeply satisfying once you do it. I totally agree with that. And that has been one of the neat things about using this system and using it for years, is that it really causes you to think about, like, what can I do today to make the rest of this year or next year or 5 years better from now. It really causes you to be very intentional. I think somebody, either in the book or in the audiobook for 40X, one of the comments that I read was, it feels a little bit like when you get started in the process, your whirlwind is filled with pterodactyls that breathe fire.
Yes, it's so true.
Right? And over time, as you, with great intention and deliberation and discipline, you pick one of those pterodactyls out of the fire and you work on it, you refine it, you make it better. I think one of the comments from Matt is like, he's a big fan of continuous dedication to the system and improving the system over time. That's what this is really about. And then the follow-up to that comment that was made about the flame-breathing pterodactyls, fire-breathing pterodactyls, was afterwards, it's like sparrows. So you're always going to have a whirlwind. I know in George's case, we actually helped to, we set him up on 40X. We helped him manage his scoreboard. We do accountability stuff with him. And one of the comments that he's made to me throughout that, he's such a hard worker and he's so consistent. And he doesn't always have time to kind of pan out and see how much success his efforts have wrought. And so over the past 2 years, I believe it is, we've quadrupled the sales for his business through a variety of things, but definitely 40X was a large factor in that. And every time we do our scoreboard review, which, by the way, in that Monday huddle, you're pulling up your team scoreboard and looking at the scoreboard, progress toward the WIG, the wildly important goal, and then lead measures. But every time we do that with George, he goes, wow, we've made this much progress? Like he's so into it on a day-to-day basis, he doesn't give himself credit for all his hard work. And that is, that's why keeping a scoreboard is so important. It really helps the team to know whether or not they're winning. And when they are winning, everyone can see it, and it's exciting.
And I wanted to also give one more piece from Matt in Manufacturing. So he said, I would say the goal should be continuous improvement to the system. If the system improves, then the output will continue to get better. But the focus remains on improving the system, not setting output goals that the system may or may not even be capable of producing. That's an interesting way of looking at a wildly important goal and your lead measures. Because again, you've got the right focus with the Kaizen, continuous improvement, little tiny steps to improvement. You're looking at the system. How do you improve the system? An output goal may be one way of improving the system if you have that need. But if your system has other areas that are more important to improving the overall goal of the growth and health of the organization, then you might want to pick a different aspect of that system that you want to focus on. So how would you work on continuous improvement to a system?
I mean, for me, I'm a team guy. And so I like getting together the best and brightest, the ones that are feet on the ground. So that could be in a manufacturing setting, that could be everyone from your C-level executives to the people that are working the line. And just bring in the people that you know that are dedicated to quality, they're passionate about the company, they have a vested interest in being there and they like their job. Bring those people in and ask them, how are we doing? We're looking at our mission again, we're looking at our vision again, and we're looking at ourselves in the mirror and we're saying, are we being as true to our mission and vision as we would hope to be? And if not, what are some of the areas where we can improve? And see what everyone in your company, not everyone, but see what the people that I've just described have to say about that subject matter. And make a note of all that. And that's what we did in our summit. We kind of went through everything in the whirlwind. So we've talked about loss prevention. We've talked about improving quality. And for us, improving quality is a matter of continuous education. So like paying for classes and certifications, reading books together. That's why our secondary goal is called Educate to Elevate. And we read books together and do reports together on a ritual basis. But look at the whole whirlwind with team members that meet that description.
Yeah, with the team.
And listen to what they see as being the one or two most important things in their little universe inside of your company. And then look at that whole list that you've curated from everyone. And what we did at Aqua Vita, because we have a small enough team, is we looked at that whole list together and we came to a consensus on what the one or two things were that we wanted to focus on next within our business. So that is what I would say. And if you keep doing that in summits, your systems will keep getting better and better and better.
And also, I mean, those conversations are hugely valuable. Just so the team members that you can get together in a room, because you can't really do this at a giant scale in terms of coming together and doing that brainstorm focus session. But when you get team players in the room that may not hang out with each other very much and may not try and work forward together towards a goal, it's really amazing when you get people who are focused, who are intentional, who care deeply about your organization's growth, about your team, about your clients in a room together. You're going to get some amazing lead measures. You're going to get a really good WIG, but you're also going to get some synergy happening in the organization that's really interesting. Like we have, what's working, what's broken, what's missing, what needs to be fixed. And so we kind of go over all of those. And some of those go into our 40X system and some of those go into the whirlwind of, man, we need to work on that too. Mm-hmm. So that process in and of itself is really valuable. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
And our cadence of accountability is to meet weekly as a team. Again, we're a small team, so maybe within your company, each department could meet on a Monday and just report on lead measures or something, and then your C-level executives could meet Monday and do the same thing. That's our weekly routine, and then quarterly we get together and we evaluate how we're doing towards our wildly important goal, and we determine whether or not that wildly important goal needs to be adjusted for the next quarter, or if we need to choose a new wildly important goal. We do a kind of a bigger summit mid-year. If we've been doing really well, I'll do something like a team retreat where we'll, go someplace nice for a day and hang out in a different setting and just kind of celebrate everyone's hard work and then review what's worked for us and what hasn't. And one of the things that we can talk about in greater depth in a later video is called the 4 insights.
Yeah.
And we do that. We do that twice a year. We do it mid-year and we do it at the end of the year. So the 4 insights are questions that you ask your team, and then you go back around after gathering asking those questions, and you come up with solutions. So First one is what's working in the organization. The second one is what's broken within the organization, and then what's missing and what's confused. And we found that when we ask those questions again, I'll repeat it. So it's what's working, what's broken, what's missing, and confused. We get really interesting feedback, on the ground type feedback from our team members. And then the follow-ups to each of those questions, after you've gone through and you've done those lists, is what's working and how can we amplify what's working? What's broken and how can we fix what's broken? What's missing and what needs to be created to fill that void? And what's confused and what can we do to clarify that within the company? And again, that's the 4 insights. And it's a really valuable part. I don't think it's actually included in 4 disciplines of execution. We got that from one of Dave Ramsey's processes when Jess and I attended his EntreLeadership classes. But it's worked really well for being kind of the central questions that we ask in each of our summits for continuous improvement on systems.
Yeah, and also, towards your WIG. And as you're looking at that continuous improvement mindset, as Jon was saying, adjust your lead measures quarterly. Figure out what piece of that system needs that continuous improvement most. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear how that impacts you, because again, the people that we've been able to work with in this, it's so much fun seeing the results on this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely. You can You may be listening to this on our website or YouTube, iTunes, wherever. But if you have the ability to leave a comment, we'd love to hear from you. You can also go to our website, aquavitacreative.com, and fill out the contact form or the request free consultation form. We'd love to talk to you about your business. If you'd like to roll out 40X within your business or ask questions about how 40X could work for your business, we're happy to answer those as well.
And you might make it on the
Again,
air.
that initial conversation is completely free. We just love what we do, and we love helping people, and we love businesses and leaders. And we want to equip and empower you all however we can. And that's why we're doing this show. We want to reach as many people as we possibly can. We've learned some things that we think are really useful. We've seen the results of those. Our business continues to grow. Our clients' businesses continue to grow. And we'd love to help you grow as well. So
Send in your comments. Hang in there.
Yep, keep growing and keep going. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to our show. If you like this content, please click on the subscribe button below. You can also visit aquavitacreative.com to schedule a free consultation. Just click on the button on the homepage. It'll take you right to the form. And we'd love to speak to you about your business and answer any questions that you have about business, finance, life, relationships, whatever. You can comment also below. And thank you guys again for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.